completed, just like our long-term, whether it's the refurbishment of Beth Yeshua, McGregor Road, or whatever happens. Rabbi Sachs points out an interesting point. He says that Lot lived in a house in Sodom, while Abraham lived in a tent. And Rabbi Sachs also points out that Laban, likewise, lived in a house. And of course, Laban is a type of the anti-Mashiach. There's something compelling about being sojourners. Did you notice that the poles slid into rings for carrying the ark? And it says in the text they were not to be removed. You're not to take the poles out of the ark. Why is that? Don't get attached. Don't get settled down. Don't get comfortable. We are to be able and agile and mobile and willing to respond to the Spirit. Today, our temporary dwelling is a reminder to hold tightly to nothing in this world. Many of us are repairing and rebuilding after the storm. This is right and good and responsible. But just don't hold on too tightly to the structures that we build. Rashi says it this way: a place where they encamped is always called Masa, journeys, because from the place of encampment they always set out again on a new journey. Therefore they are all called journeys. And in the various epochs and chapters of our lives, they are all Masa, journeys. John chapter 16 says this, Yochanan from the Gospel: however, when the Spirit of truth comes, he will guide you into all truth. He will not speak on his own initiative, but he will say only what he hears. He will announce to you the events of the future. Again, the future is part of that journey of something that we're moving towards. But it says the Spirit of truth, the Ruach HaEmet, will lead you into all truth. Because more than any other exercise that we do in a year, whether it's Pesach, Shavuot, Yom Kippur, the three big festivals, Sukkot is the one that is the greatest living visual aid of our faith as we live on a journey for the duration. And so I say to you, Chag Sukkot Smech. Shabbat Shalom.
Please all rise as the Torah is open.
Mezot HaTorah Asher Sam Moshe Lifnei Bnei Yisrael Al Pi Adonai Ke'ad Moshe. This is the Torah which Moses placed before the children of Israel. It is the word of Adonai by the hand of Moses. It's Hayim Lema who reigned before any creature was formed. At the time when all things were made by his desire, then he was proclaimed king. After all things shall end, he alone, the awesome one, shall reign. He was, he is, and he will be forever in glory. One is our God. There is no second to compare to him. None is his equal. Without beginning, without end, to him belongs strength and dominion. He is my God, my Redeemer who lives, a rock in my travail, and time in distress. He is my banner and my refuge, the portion of my cup on the day when I call. And to his hand I commend my spirit, when I sleep and when I wake. With my spirit, my body also. For the Lord is with me, and I will not be afraid. You may be seated. If you are in a period of virtual mourning, if you are on or near the anniversary of the death of a loved one, you may stand with us for the reading of the Mourner's Kaddish. The Mourner's Kaddish is said first in Aramaic and then in English. Yitzkadal ve'yitzkadash shemei Rabbi. Ve'amad dibru pertei, ve'amlit machotei ve'keyochon uveyochon, ochaye decho ve'et Yisrael, ve'agla u'bizman kariv ve'emru. Amen. Yehei shemei Rabbi, me'rach ve'olam omei omaya. Yitbarach ve'yishtabach ve'yitzporach ve'yitzramah, ve'yitznaseh ve'yitzadar, ve'yitzaleh ve'yitzalel. Shemei Kudusha. Leila Mikol Berkata. Visharata Toshbakata Venemachata. De Moran Be'ama Be'emru. Amen. Yehei Shalom Rabba. Mishamayim V'chaim Aleinu. Be'ekol Israel. Be'emru. Amen. Osei Shalom Dirama. Hu Yasei Shalom Aleinu. Be'ekol Israel. Be'emru. Amen. Magnified and sanctified be his great name. In the world which he hath created according to his will. May he establish his kingdom during your life and during your days and during the life of all the house of Israel, even speedily and at a near time and save ye. Amen. Let his great name be blessed forever and for all eternity. Blessed, praised, and glorified, exalted, extolled, and honored, magnified and lauded be the name of the Holy One. Blessed be he. Though he be high above all the blessings and hymns, praises and consolations, which are uttered in the world, and save ye. Amen. May there be abundant peace from heaven, and life for us and for all Israel, and save ye. Amen. He who makes peace in his high places, may he make peace for us and for all Israel, and save. Amen. You may be seated.
As you know, we're joined this morning by Rabbi, another Messianic congregation here in town. So if you are attending from Rabbi, make sure you tithe to Rabbi, and you can work that out with your rabbi. We're going to take up the tithe now in the baskets. The baskets are provided for Beth Yeshua, and if you need to tithe with Rabbi, make arrangements and do so accordingly. So we will now say a blessing over the entire tithe, whether you're with Rabbi or with Beth Yeshua, and we'll go forward. Abu Bashamayim, Heavenly Father, we thank you and we praise you for this opportunity to give back to you, to return favor and thanksgiving to you for all the blessings that you've given us. You have indeed blessed us. Our cup is full with what you've appointed for us. And we want to return that to you. Our lives are an olah, but we give you a portion of our money, and this way in which we praise you and we worship you. We ask, Adonai, that you would take these gifts and these offerings, that you would use them for the work of your kingdom, for the extension of your gospel, and for the restoration of your Torah around the world. We ask, Adonai, that you would multiply abundantly for your word. We ask, Adonai, that you would bless those who give in faith during these days. We ask that you bless them, encourage them, that they might bless you more. We commend all these things to you, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen, amen, and amen. As I said, we're joined by Elava this morning, so we're grateful to fellowship and worship with them. It does mean a bit of a full house, and that kind of makes it fun. I like when the people singing are louder than the worship team. It's kind of makes it a little tricky when you guys want to go fast and we want to go slow, or vice versa, but we'll get there. It's not a problem. So we're blessed to be together in this place to worship. Of course, we're grateful to our hosts, and we want to be good guests. They, of course, have a rule that there's no food or drink in the sanctuary, so we're going to honor that. There's a playground in the back, and so we just would ask that parents make sure that there is at least one parent on duty, so to speak, watching the children while they're on the playground. And that's how we'll handle that. We have one dilemma this morning. Apparently, the toilets in the women's restroom, I'm so sorry, ladies, I'd rather it was the men, but it's the ladies this morning. The toilets in the ladies' restrooms are not refilling. The tanks are not refilling. They flush fine, but they have to be refilled with a gallon bucket. So welcome back to primitive times in our history. But
just the two, like the middle one and the handicapped one are usable at all. So just the first one to your right, sorry, left.
Let's use the first one to your left.
They're marked.
Is
Do we
not
have?
usable.
Is it marked? Do we mark?
They all say, no, it's a bit of a situation, but.
Okay. The ladies have a bit of a situation. We just leave it at that. Ladies, you're on your phone.
And it's standard, there's more. It's okay.
One time, go ahead.
And there's a utility closet between the two bathrooms that has a sink to refill the bucket.
You can run a small garden hose. Don't spray it everywhere.
I will now attempt to restore order to the room. I had other announcements, but I have no idea what I'm going to say. Oh, see, it's just like a big family. We don't stand on pretense. Ladies have situations in their bathrooms. We need an attendant or something like that. All right, yes.
I'm the attendant.
Okay, Janine is the attendant. So if you need help with your bathroom, I remember one time, I have to tell this story, right? Okay, so I better tell the story now. So I wander into, I don't know, some airport bathroom, it's in Houston or someplace like that. And there's a fellow in there, and he's washing everything down immediately after it's used. And he's got a little jar here with tips on it. And the jar was full of money. And I thought, that's genius, because a bathroom attendant, of course, he's going to clean up. That was the cleanest restroom, cleanest bathroom in any airport ever. So there's genius for you if you look for a small business. Or here at Beth Yeshua, we'll put you on staff. Okay. So continuing on, we have Torah Club starting up again. The Torah Club cycle is going to repeat itself. And so it's that time of the year when the Torah Club repeats itself. We have two Torah Clubs that operate by people who are in this congregation. And David Fender, are you still on schedule? Will come up and introduce the model of the Torah Club and how that works.
Yes, just want to briefly mention that. As the Rabbi said, this Torah Club is sponsored or put on, written by the First Fruits of Zion, as they go by. And the new lessons that actually start next week is called The Beginning of Wisdom. And what it's going to be studying is going to be using the weekly Torah readings. So each week will follow the weekly Torah readings. But it's going to then reference those readings to the other wisdom literature, such as Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon, and the New Testament also. And the lessons are going to emphasize the wisdom, a meaningful life, the presence of God, and spiritual growth. The first 5 weeks, so starting next week, will be the first week. The first 5 weeks are free. Okay? After that, if you'd like to continue, it will cost $60, and that's an annual fee. And that's to pay for the material. All that goes to FFOC. Okay, but the first 5 weeks again are free. So that gives you a chance to check it out. Doesn't cost anything. If you like it, continue coming. You don't, obviously. We have been meeting in the synagogue, but that's obviously not going to be practical right now. So we really don't have a place to meet the group that has been meeting. So for the time being, we're going to be meeting on Zoom, okay, for at least a few weeks until we can figure out a place to actually meet. We do meet at 6:30 on Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. I should say, and we will quit by 8 o'clock. We always try to quit on time. The rabbi mentioned that there are 2 groups. The other group meets on
Thursday night, 6:30.
okay, and
Location is my house.
okay, all right.
We'll put out the address as soon as possible.
Okay, so that's the 2 groups. If you want more information or if you want to see a lesson, come see me afterwards, I can tell you that. And as far as the Tuesday night group, again, it will, for the first 5 weeks, there will be no cost, but you need to let me know that you want to, that you want to attend. Because I need to send you a lesson. These are the lessons, by the way. I need to email you a lesson. I need your email address, and I'll also need to email you the Zoom link, or you won't know where to go. Okay. So again, see me afterwards if you're at all interested. Okay.
One last item is that our Shemini Tzedek and Simchat Torah services are canceled due to the damage at Beth Yeshua. And for now, we have this building on Saturdays, but we don't really have a place to do Simchat Torah, so we're going to cancel that this year, unfortunately. All right, now I will take praise reports and prayer requests. As I've said in the past, we will be moving to prayer cards eventually. But for now, we still get to share our praise reports and prayer requests. Anyone? Yes, sir.
A year ago, my wife had double COVID pneumonia, and Baruch Hashem, she's doing very well. However, she's still not completely healed. Her name is Ruth Zaitina. And I thank you for your prayers, and I thank everybody who prayed for her last year, because the Lord has done an awesome miracle, and bringing her back, she was at death's door. Yeshua is awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, we were very blessed to be able to go to a hotel in Lauderdale for the first week, and then a friend's house opened up the second week, so we did not have to pay anything either week.
Because you were gone full 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Crazy. Harris?
My wife and I, a friend, we traveled, we went to my son's wedding, we had no incidents with the car, except the flat, but saved before we got into trouble with it. It just went absolutely beautiful. Our house was fine, their house was fine.
Oh, Baruch
So,
Hashem.
the wedding was absolutely beautiful. So,
Wonderful.
so
Congratulations. That's some joy. Yes. Sylvia? Bonnie, Sylvia wants you to go first.
Thank you. It's just, my air conditioner motor went on my air conditioner, and the man came out to fix it, and he propped my tree up that was laying on the ground, and so now it's standing up.
I didn't know you could do that with trees. I didn't know you could do that. That's great. Sylvia?
A friend of mine, a Christian friend of mine, has been sharing the gospel with this Jewish girl that it's just, she's not really observant, she's not really religious, she just is in tradition. And the girl recently reached out to my friend, and she said that she got saved. And that she accepted Yeshua as her Savior, she wanted to get baptized and everything, and wanted to start talking to people, and she gave her my number. She hasn't reached out yet, but it's exciting that, you know, she's going to be I'm trying to get her to come to a Messianic congregation so that
Yes.
she can maintain her identity.
Yes, it's very good, very good. Baruch Hashem.
Yep.
Great joy in heaven. One person repents. Yes.
This is an awesome praise report, because as you know, we've lost everything. We're devastated, and we have had no real response from our insurance company. And it was getting to both of us by this past Thursday. And Thursday is the day I nominally prayed with my prayer partner for 40 years. And she had texted that morning and said, our son's coming this morning, could we postpone our prayer session to this afternoon? And I said, no problem. But meantime, this is going on between the two of us, that we're just both so frustrated. One day it looks like we've made progress, and then it's like the rug gets pulled up. So I said to Steve, you go back to work, you've got enough to do, let me deal with this. And I went into the bedroom and prayed, and I decided to call our mortgage company, because I thought they have a vested interest in this place. Surely they could put some pressure on the insurance company. Well, that's not the case, because we weren't insured with them, we're insured with another major insurer, and the gal said, you're just going to have to be patient. You're in a safe place. You're not as bad off as so many people. And I said, thanks for reminding me. I'm truly grateful for that. And she said, you just got to have your patience and trust in the Lord. And then she started praying, and I'm in tears, because this is on a recorded line. This is a claims person in a mortgage company preaching the gospel to me. Pray strategically for the adjuster and just doing warfare over me. I mean, she was on the phone with me for 45 minutes, and her name is Charmaine, and I'm just praising God for her, because I can feel the power of those prayers. I just love that she said to me, let your light shine. This world is in such darkness, and they need to see the joy in your face. And I'm like, thank you, Lord. And just what I needed. I mean, who would have thought?
I love that pun. She's preaching the gospel to me. Prayer requests now. Do you want prayer requests? Yes, William?
Daniel Nades.
Was he ever aware of our visit?
Yeah, no, he wasn't, but I talked with him this morning a little bit.
Okay.
Great.
Okay. Val? Chad?
Yeah, I lost a dear friend from my hometown, Paul Weaver, so just pray for the Weaver family. He passed away a couple days ago with his family, and he's behind his 2 daughters and his wife, so just pray for the Weaver family.
Ronnie?
Jesse Lopez.
Easy.
Pray for my father, his death, his migraines are not
Cheryl, and for her help and for all the displaced people with the storm.
Okay, yes, Steve.
Traveling mercies for Eric and Deborah Alexander.
Yes.
Our granddaughter Hannah Christensen for restored health and healing.
Special request.
Pray for Jocelyn. She doesn't like me very much at work, but she lost her.
Okay, let's go to prayer. Abba Vashamayim, Heavenly Father, we thank you that you pause, that you take a break from your day, that you listen to our prayers, that you even stop time to consider our desires, our needs, these special prayer requests. Heavenly Father, you know all the stories that are represented here. You know the details, the complications. You know the justice and compassion that are always needed in every single one of our prayer requests. And so we just appeal to you on the basis of your love, for you love all these that we request prayers and intercession for. You love them first, and you will love them always. And so we ask on the basis of your love that you would be reminded of every single person here. And for those requests that are unnamed, we ask, Adonai, that you would also especially consider the quiet prayers that are spoken in the heart. Heavenly Father, for Ruth, we pray for healing, ongoing healing. We thank you for the healing that's been accomplished. We ask that you would continue and complete the healing, that you would confirm your love and your power in her life. For all those who are struggling with health complications as a result of this storm, whether it be cleanup, disaster mitigation, mold, dust exposures, all those things, we just ask for healing and health and strength and resilience. Father, for Daniel, we pray that you would indeed continue to heal and restore. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen. 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 We have lost a box in our travels this morning, in our Vagabond travels, so there's a missing box. So we couldn't find some of the blessings, we couldn't find some of the prayers, and we couldn't find the talit, and so somewhere there's an orphan box running around. So we're going to dispense with the prayer for Jerusalem, and we will continue with worship. If you would like, you can all stand. We like to emphasize both the liturgy and traditional worship and also contemporary worship that you will see in any sort of congregational gathering. And the same thing rings true in both. You can be passive and idle in the liturgical worship, and you can be passive and idle during our singing, in our musical worship, if you want to call it that. The real issue is, where do you want to go in worship? Again, we're all on a journey. Where do you want that journey to end up? The best journey ends up with closeness, without a doubt. That we should be drawn into closeness, and that we respond to Him, and we respond quickly to come close to meet Him when He draws us to. So let's respond to that invitation.
Fear not, son of the heat of the battle.
if I can have some children? A few men to hold up a small gather around. It's a small belief that casts a big shadow.
It was in the box. It was in the missing box. What'd you say?
We bless our children under the tallit, as is our tradition. We have more children coming. It's in a box. We lost a box. A runaway box. There we go. What is our problem? We almost missed an entire generation. All right. Is that everybody? Maybe one more? Oh, there she is. Please touch your hands as we say blessings. Yevarecha Adonai yedesh melecha, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichnecha. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom shalom. The Lord bless you. The Lord keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you, be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance on you, give you rest, peace, and shalom. The Lord make you and all the boys of the world like Ephraim and Manasseh. The Lord make you and all the girls in the world like Sarah, Rachel. The Lord lay down a path of blessing before you. May he make straight paths before you. May those paths lead into his eternal life, into his love, and into his wisdom. May the Lord be the sun on your right hand. May the Lord be the shade on your left. May the Lord guard your going out and your coming in, both now and forevermore. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen. Amen. You're free to go to Shabbat school. Shabbat shalom. It's a pleasure and a delight to be with you this morning. Grateful for the opportunity. When you're going through circumstances like this where things are changing and you know, it's a delight. It makes it an adventure, right? You've all heard me say, you don't end up in a Messianic Jewish congregation by accident. Every one of you is here by virtue of a journey, a long story. All of you have a journey by which you came to some sort of veil-lifting experience, wherein there was a spiritual and intellectual aha moment. And oh, that's right moment. The conclusion of which was for you to enter into some variation of Messianic congregational life, whether that be a Messianic Jewish synagogue, a Messianic Chavurah, fellowship, a congregation, a home group, or connection to some kind of online ministry. We all ended up in some kind of Messianic Jewish thing. For most of you, this journey came with breakthroughs of new truth and new understandings, came with some iconoclastic experiences as well. It's the classical grenade on the dinner table. When somebody throws a grenade on the dinner table, what happens? Everybody gets up and runs away. It has the effect of ending the meal. And when we come to these breakthrough intellectual moments, especially in our journey into a Messianic Jewish or sort of Messianic-centric life, there's a lot of times those moments where you're like, oh, wait a minute, this changes everything. For some of you, for many of you, the doctrinal teachings of the church of your background, in some cases, have been found lacking or even flawed in your conclusions and in your studies. For many of you, likewise, the Jewish traditions were found to be flawed as well. Some of the flaws of the Jewish tradition were in the rigid, legalistic formulas of keeping Torah, or the spiritless, secularized community life, or the rejection of Yeshua as Mashiach. Suffice it to say, Jew or Gentile, you are here because you have come into a new understanding, You've come to reject the old ways, the ways of thinking, both traditional Judaism without Mashiach and traditional Christianity without the whole Bible, without the Torah. As such, in a congregation or an assembly, a group like ours, you can end up with a little bit of hostility towards the church or towards your background, your tradition, your culture, your background. There should be no hostility, but I understand sometimes there just is. The net effect is a tendency to reject the teachings and practice of Christianity and Judaism. That's why the vast majority of Jewish converts to Yeshua end up in churches with absolutely no practice of their tradition. Naturally, we are here, Beth Yeshua is here to provide an alternative to that. You can accept Yeshua and still retain your Judaism, your tradition. In fact, it's a great gain if you do. The traditions of Judaism have much to inform and support and explain the Christian faith for those who understand it from that perspective as well. But also, a Messianic Jewish lifestyle allows the Jew to continue to keep and observe all that Adonai has commanded them to. Look at all the commandments, the feasts, which say you shall do this perpetually in all of your dwelling places. Well, now you can keep the Torah, you can keep the commandments of Adonai in a Messianic Jewish context that you won't find so convenient in a church environment. You won't see this supported in most Western evangelical churches, which is unfortunate. Alongside the Jew who believes in Yeshua, of the whole council of Adonai, there is also the traditional Christian who is learning of the Torah things and learning of the depth of the gospel as it's revealed and informed by the Torah. When Yeshua spoke to the leading Torah teachers of that day, he said, "Do what they tell you to do, for they sit in the seat of Moses," which is a reference to a teacher in the synagogue. If Yeshua were to say those words today, he would have said of the rabbis, "Do what they tell you to do what they say." Perhaps don't do what they do, but do what they say. And I think that's as important for us to understand the context of where we should be in the kingdom of Adonai. But it brings us to this. One of the points of traditional Christian orthodoxy, theology, and doctrine is the birth of Yeshua. And the first complaint of any honest spiritual believer is that this event of the appearance of Yeshua on the earth as born to a young lady is the most profound miracle in the history of humanity, in the history of creation. But unfortunately, it has become conflated with materialism and the celebration of the Christmas holiday. I'm not opposed to materialism or gift-giving season of sorts. Giving gifts is a worthy and blessed pastime. But the effect of much hyped gift-giving is contrary to the message of Mashiach, who is born as a priceless gift that you don't pay for, that you receive. To a world of spiritually impoverished people, Yeshua was offered. To a world of spiritually bankrupt and abject spiritual emptiness, Yeshua was brought to this frame. The second point is the historicity of appointing such a day as the birth of Yeshua. December is known in pagan circles as the holiday that you keep for the observing the birth of Yeshua, but it's also known in pagan circles for many holidays, equinoxes and other pagan holidays. So I'm not going to spend any time today dwelling on the pagan influences of the Christmas holiday. You can do your research on your own and arrive at your own conclusions to that, which I know many of you have already. But just a little bit of reading will bring you to enough information to put the December Christmas holiday tradition with at least a bad taste in your mouth. And I think many of you understand that. The last complaint that an honest person, I think, would have with the December tradition as the birth of Yeshua is that logically it almost certainly didn't happen in December. For those of us who've studied, there's much research and discussion using math and seasons and the timing of the service of Zechariah's service as a priest, the father of Yochanan. You can derive at a date, but the primary problem that I have with the date in December is that you wouldn't have had shepherds in the fields in December. And in fact, what we don't realize is that much of Israel in December is very, very cold and unpleasant. There's snow on the ground. And it would have been highly unlikely and perhaps even foolish for Caesar to have declared a census during December when most people traveled by barefoot in the snow. So that would have been a little absurd for him to have done that. However, that being said, there is much theological and historical discussion about the timing of the birth of Yeshua. You can find reasonable arguments for essentially 3 likely times of the year around the birth of Yeshua. One is Pesach, another is December 25th. You can find a reasonable argument for that. And the third is around Sukkot, this time that we're in right now. For me, this kind of practical discussion leads to the conclusion of Sukkot. So what we have is we have this Advent, this birth of Yeshua, and in the Messianic movement, because we are a reactionary movement in many cases to Christianity, we find that there is less acknowledgement, or sometimes no acknowledgement, of the birth of Yeshua. And so we try to, at Beth Yeshua, acknowledge and make mention of and talk about the birth of Yeshua every year during the Sukkot holiday. So every year on Shabbat, when Shabbat falls in the middle of Sukkot, wherever it falls, that's the day that we mark. Not as the day that he was born, but the day that we mark and remember that he came to earth and what that means to us. What is the greatest miracle in the history of the world? We got some big ones, right? We've got the flood, that's a big one. We got creation, right? Other great miracles. How about stopping the movement of the sun? However you look at that, right? Under Joshua and also under Hezekiah. How about many people who rose from the dead when Yeshua was crucified? There's some miracles. And others that were raised from the dead based on intercession and so forth. The greatest miracle, many would say, is the resurrection of Yeshua. But for me, the resurrection of Yeshua after the crucifixion is kind of like, why would you be surprised at that? You're not going to keep Adonai down. And whatever you think of the Son of Man and the tradition of the Son of Man, I just wouldn't be surprised that he resurrected. And then you've got, of course, the prophetics. So for me, the Son of Adonai, the one in whom was creation, who surrendered his life by going into the crucifixion, but he surrendered his whatever his divine nature was, he surrendered that when he came as an infant. Consider the creator God of the universe, and in some way saying this, today you have become my son, today I have become your father. And people argue about what that means. For me, that means he was coming to the earth as a man, and now Adonai is his father, and he's the son. And that's what that sort of speaks to for me. Sending into the earth as a man in the form of an infant born of a woman who received the brunt of the curse at the fall in the garden with the serpent and the tree. The brunt of the curse in the form of increased pain and childbirth. But it was that increased pain and childbirth that was going to bring forth the birth of Yeshua as the redemption of that curse. So for me, Sukkot as an appointed time, the Moed of Sukkot, is so compelling as a time for the birth of Yeshua because the theme of Sukkot is this dwelling. In Greek, you would say tabernacling, the word in Greek, because Yeshua did that. He came as a temporary dwelling, in a temporary dwelling. The human being without Adonai is compared to a beast, right? Human beings without Adonai are compared to beasts. The human being is capable of love and creation and blessing and healing. All these things point to the occasional accomplishments of the human being. Human beings are capable of doing some pretty incredible things. But without Adonai, they are considered beast-like at the same time. Yeshua came to a temporary dwelling, a body which otherwise would have been the natural dwelling place of the beast. The Sukkah is likewise a temporary dwelling, which we read from the Scriptures. It has its origin as a temporary dwelling place for animals. Do you see the connection? The Sukkah is a temporary dwelling different than all other temporary dwellings in that for this week we live there. Adonai makes us different by dwelling first in the temporary dwelling of the man Yeshua, and then by the temporary dwelling in us by his Ruach, by his Spirit. make no mistake that when you die and you're resurrected, you're not going to have the ingathering, the infilling of the Holy Spirit. You won't have that. You'll be transformed and you'll be a different kind of creation. You'll be a different kind of thing. So we are observing and remembering the greatest miracle today. We are celebrating today this birth of Yeshua that we believe came around Sukkot. The Talmud and other sources speak of the division of Abiyah, serving as priest during the second half of the 4th month of the Jewish calendar in late June. 15 months later, we have the birth of Yeshua in the 7th month of the Jewish calendar in the fall of the year, either late September or early October. His conception, not his birth, would have occurred in or around December of the previous year. In the 7th month of the Jewish calendar, we have the Feast of Tabernacles. We have Sukkot. And this is what we see in the Greek. Yochanan chapter 1, the Word became a human being and lived with us, and we saw Shekhinah, the Shekhinah, the Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. The word that is used here in the Greek is eskenosin, which literally means to encamp, to encamp. The Feast of Sukkot is all about encamping, this temporary dwelling, both the noun and the verb. Temporary dwelling is the hut, and the verb, temporary dwelling, as in dwelling with somebody. This is Yeshua who came temporarily to dwell with us. So on this Sukkot Shabbat, we remember Zechron Yeladot Yeshua HaMashiach, the birth of Yeshua, the Messiah. Many of you know the story, but I'll read it again, just as a memorial. From Luke, in chapter 1, in the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent by Adonai to a city in the Galilee called Nazareth, to a virgin engaged to a man named Yosef, in the house of David. The virgin's name was Miriam. Approaching her, the angel said, "Shalom, favored lady, Adonai is with you." She was deeply troubled by his words and wondered what kind of greeting this might be. She was deeply troubled. Shalom, woman of favor. This is a blessing. Why is that troubling? Wondered what was the favor that Adonai has. Speaking of her humility and her grace. That's why she was troubled, because she could not imagine or conceive of what this favor or grace would be accorded to her. This phrase, Adonai is with you, speaking of the conception of the child. The angel said to her, "Don't be afraid, Miriam, for you have found favor with Adonai. Look, you will become pregnant. You will give birth to a son. You are to name him Yeshua. He will be great. He will be called the Son of Ha'elyon. Adonai will give him the throne of his forefather David. He will rule the house of Yaakov forever. There will be no end to his kingdom." "How can this be?" asked Miriam of the angel, "since I am a virgin." The angel answered her, "The Ruach HaKodesh will come upon you. The power of Ha'elyon will cover you. Therefore the holy child born to you will be called the Son of God." We read past this text sometimes without realizing the weight of what's happening here, the nature of what's going on, that Adonai is taking liberties with this young woman's body. In our modern culture, we have a generation of women who insist that their bodies is their own. But in fact, our culture has so ingrained this idea that no one can tell you what to do with your body. This idea of Adonai begetting a child by a young virgin is fundamentally offensive. Do you see that's the nature of the enemy's deception? Right? Let's change the paradigm here. Your body is your own. Therefore, any time the spirit of Adonai would come upon a young lady and bring forth life is fundamentally offensive and wrong. That's the distortion of the enemy's message today. Rather than dwell on this offense, look at Miriam's response. Miriam says, "I am a servant of Adonai, may it happen to me as you have said," and the angel left her. Without delay, Miriam set out and hurried to the hill country of Yehudah, where Zechariah lived, entered his house, and greeted Elisheva. And Elisheva heard Miriam's greeting. The baby in her womb stirred, and Elisheva was filled with the Ruach HaKodesh and spoke up in a loud voice, "How blessed are you among women, and how blessed is the child in your womb. But who am I that the mother of my Lord should come to me? For as soon as the sound of your greeting reached my ears, the baby in my womb leaped for joy. Indeed, you are blessed because you have trusted that the promise Adonai has made to you will be fulfilled." Consider, once again, if I can, just belaboring the point, this has never happened in the history of the world. This moment that a woman carries the conception of the Son of Adonai. What a profound thing. And to the degree that that this sphere, this realm, this earth has been handed over to men of depravity and opportunity. This earth has been handed over to an anti-Mashiach, to an anti-king who would use it for his own purposes. That wickedness would dwell in the land, that wickedness would reign in the land. And into this comes the invasion of the son of Adonai, who's called the Son of Man in the text. Continuing on, around this time, Emperor Augustus, Luke chapter 2, issued an order for a census to be taken throughout the empire. This registration, the first of its kind, took place when Quirinius was governing in Syria. Again, you can use some of that information to document the date. Everyone went to be registered, each to his own town. So Joseph, because he was a descendant of David, went up from the town of Bethsaida in the Galilee to the town of David, called Bethlehem in Yehudah, to be registered with Miriam, to whom he was engaged, and who was pregnant. While they were there, the time came for her to give birth, and she gave birth to her first child, a son. She wrapped him in cloth and laid him down in a feeding trough, because there was no space for them in the living quarters. Why was there no space in the living quarters? Because, my conjecture, Sukkot is a pilgrim festival, and Bethlehem is just, I think, a few hours walk from Yerushalayim. And so when you can't find space in Jerusalem, you start to go out to these outlying villages. And you get close enough to Jerusalem, and that's why Bethlehem was full, not just because of the census, but also because of the travel that was going on during that time. Bethlehem may have functioned as a staging place for travelers going up to Jerusalem. You cannot minimize the importance of Bethlehem or Bethlehem. First, in the narrative of Ruth, with its importance on the harvest festival, Sukkot, Ruth being a book about which the harvest figures highly. Second, in the narrative of redemption of the house of Elimelech, the husband of Naomi. Third, in the narrative of the inclusion and the acceptance of the Gentiles as a people who would bring about the restoration of the fallen tent of David. David's tent, if you will, was threatened. We think of David's tent being threatened in a post sense, in a post-David. But consider David's tent is also threatened because Boaz had yet to father a child. Right? Without Boaz fathering a child, you don't get David. You don't get Jesse. You don't get David. David's tent, if you will, depended upon the grandfather of David the king. Notice the two fathers of Obed, father of Jesse and father of David, both Elimelech and Boaz. Elimelech meaning God is king, Boaz meaning by strength, Bethlehem meaning the house of bread. And it is in this sort of intersection that all these things come to be. Continuing on with the narrative of the birth of Yeshua, in the countryside nearby were some shepherds spending the night in the fields, guarding their flocks, when an angel of Adonai appeared to them, and the Shekhinah of Adonai shone around them. They were terrified, but the angel said to them, "Don't be afraid, because I am here announcing to you good news that will bring great joy to all the people. This very day in the town of David there was born for you a deliverer who is the Messiah, the King, the Lord. Here's how you will know: you will find a baby wrapped in cloth, lying in a feeding trough." Suddenly, along with the angel, there was a vast army from heaven praising Adonai. In the highest heaven, glory to Adonai, and on earth, peace among people of goodwill. No sooner had the angels left them and gone back into heaven, the shepherds said to one another, "Let's go to Bethlehem and see this thing that has happened, that Adonai has told us about." Hurrying off, they came, and they found Miriam and Joseph and the baby lying in the feeding trough. Upon seeing this, they made known what they had found. They had been told about this child. And all who heard were amazed by what the shepherds told them. Miriam treasured all these things and kept mulling them over in her heart. Meanwhile, the shepherds returned, glorifying and praising Adonai for everything they had heard and seen, just as they had been told. And that's a quick rundown of the narrative of the birth of Yeshua. And we come at this at a bit of a loss, a bit of a handicap, because here's the problem. From Courier and Ives to Hallmark to Charlie Brown specials to mall shopping in December, we have been so inundated and saturated with a Western mythology of the birth of Yeshua, i.e. Christmas, such that when we arrive now at this place in the text and we read through it, it's difficult for us to really properly engage with what's happening. And I can't minimize to you the connection. Let's just take it one place. And I don't have time to go into this. If I had maybe a year, I could teach on all the aspects of the birth of Yeshua. But this morning I want to take it one place. Consider the erba manim, the 4 species, which we have here on display. Many of you are familiar with this. You take it out and you shake it, and you say the blessings, and you make a mess with all the leaves that fall off, and it's part of the joy and the fun. From Vayikra, Leviticus chapter 23, it says this: on the 15th day of the 7th month, when you have gathered the produce of the land, you are to observe the festival of Adonai 7 days. The first day is to be a complete rest, and the 8th day is to be a complete rest. On the first day, you are to take choice fruit, palm fronds, thick branches, and river willows, and celebrate in the presence of Adonai for 7 days. And this is what you're supposed to do. This is Stern's translation that I'm reading this from, Leviticus chapter 23, verse 39. Let's look at this passage a little bit more, because there's a lot more going on here. It says, you shall take. It says, let's go to verse 40, if you're following along in the Bible. On the first day you are to take, you shall take. And then it says this, Peri etz hadar. Peri etz hadar. We say the peri in our blessing, in our Kiddush blessing, right? It's the fruit. Peri is fruit. Etz is tree. Hadar is beautiful or becoming. All right? And so it says this. It says, Peri etz hadar. So that's the fruit of a beautiful tree, which is represented here by this etrog. And this is the species that people have traditionally kept as a beautiful fruit. It's interesting that it both tastes good and it smells good. Going on, kapot temarim, it says in the Hebrew, kapot temarim, which is literally hands of trees. What are the hands of trees? Leaves. The leaves of the tree. Or in this, the conjecture is that the tamarim was palm trees, and so you'd have fronds of palm trees. And then we have this, va'anaf etzavot, branches of trees. Or some people say it's branches of thick trees or branches of trunks. So you have the branches that come off of that. And we have that here. This is the palm frond here. And then after that, we have Ve'arvei Nahal, willows of the water is how that's typically translated. Ve'arvei Nahal, literally, perhaps you would say trees that grow in the water or willows that grow in the water. And then after this it says, Ushmachtem lifnei Adonai Elhechem shivat yamin. Be joyful, shmachtem, simcha, to have joy. Be joyful before the face of Adonai, lifnei. We use the word penei for face, lifnei, penei. Adonai Elhechem, Adonai your God, shivat yamin, for 7 days. All right, so let's look at this in a little more detail. It starts out with the beginning of this phrase here. Again, we're in verse 40. Depending on your translation, you may or may not get all this, but in the Hebrew it says, Ulachachtem, you shall take, you shall take. Where have we seen where you shall take fruit? Where do we see that language before? Taking fruit. Anyone? Genesis, the garden. Right? When Eve reached out and took the fruit. Why did she take the fruit? From Bereshit chapter 3. When the woman saw that the tree was good for food, it had a pleasing appearance, it was desirable for making one wise, she took some of its fruit and ate. The tree had a pleasant appearance, in the same way that our citron has a pleasant appearance. Why were there 2 trees in the garden? We have the tree of life and we have the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And you've heard me talk about this. There's a great deal of discussion about why there could possibly be 2 trees. One discussion about this is that one tree, in one sense, there were 2 trees in order to provide an alternative to each other. In the same way that the enemy is always willing to offer you an alternative for the sake of an alternative. He's always willing to tempt you for the sake of tempting you. So that whenever you're at a junction in life, or you're at a place in life, and you have a decision to make to do something good, the enemy's right there to provide you an alternative to do something bad. Why is it that that always happens? It's kind of a balance of the universe, if you will, the duality of the universe. And so one discussion about the tree of life versus the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is that the tree of life is, of course, the life everlasting that we would go on and eat, but there has to be an alternative to it. And what is that alternative? The alternative is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. That's one discussion. And if we take that even a little step further, some people have conjecturized that in Yeshua, we could have taken from the tree of life, and should have taken from the tree of life, but we took from the wrong tree. And so the passage is concluded. And we have the curse that came out of that. So going back to Leviticus 23, it says this, be joyful for 7 days. Why joy specifically? Why simcha? Why joy specifically? Joy, where does joy come from? Joy comes from the strength that is given to us in Adonai by virtue of his closeness, our closeness to him and his closeness to us. If we consider, what is the overwhelming sentiment of a newlywed? It's joy. They enjoy being together. They enjoy being with their spouse. Hopefully you've cultivated that and protected that through the years, right? But isn't that the place that we all start at? Is joy just being in the presence of the one whom you love? One of the things that Yeshua did more than anything else when he was here on the earth, he did a lot of teaching, but he did a lot of healing. There was a lot of healing from disease, healing from leprosy, healing from sickness. Yeshua the healer. We have this willows of the water, the trees that grow in the water. When is another time that we remember a tree in the water? We spoke on this last year at great depth, great detail. Do you remember a tree? What's that?
Psalm 1.
Psalm 1, that's good. What I'm thinking of is the waters of bitterness, where we threw the tree into the waters, and the waters became sweet. And that was where Adonai was first called our healer, right? And here we have Yeshua, the healer, and we have the Arvanim, the river willows, the trees that grow in the water. Do you start to see the connections here? Consider the Arvanim. We start with the fruit, and we go to the palm fronds, and we go to the branches of the tree, and then we go to the tree growing in the water. Right? If I were to take fruit from you, I would come to you and I'd take a piece of fruit from you. It's extended to me with your hand, which is connected to your arm, which is connected to your trunk. And if you are that branch which is growing in the midst of the waters, do you see that? Who is the branch that is growing in the midst of the waters? Who is our healer? It is Yeshua. Do you see how all this ties together? We go from harvest abundance to offering to Adonai, right? And what do? We take from the fruit of our abundance and we bring it to Adonai and we offer it to him with our hands outstretched. So we're reversing the Arvanim. Do you see these overlapping images and these overlapping themes? And what is the purpose of all these things? It's all around joy. And where does the joy come from? We submit to you that the joy comes from closeness with Adonai. Because if I offer you the eat through, it doesn't work, right? I have to get close to you. And you have to get close to me. And now we're closer. Right? And that's the joy. The joy that Adonai has given for us is closeness with him. Do you see these overlapping images? And what is the purpose? That he might become our joy and that we might receive his joy. Isaiah chapter 12 says this, on that day you will say, what day? What day is it talking about here in Isaiah chapter 12? I will allow you to study this at length in your off time, homework if you will, because the day that's referred to here in Isaiah 12, speaking of it in Isaiah chapter 11, and it says this in Isaiah chapter 11, a branch will emerge from the trunk of Yeshua. A branch will emerge from the trunk of Jesse, right? A shoot will grow from his roots. The Spirit of Adonai will rest on him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and power, the Spirit of knowledge and fearing Adonai. Our conjecture and our understanding is this is Yeshua. And so it says in Isaiah chapter 12, on that day you will say, what is that day? It is the appointed day. Isaiah chapter 12, verse 1, I thank you, Adonai, because although you were angry with me, your anger is now turned away, and you are comforting. See, Adonai is my salvation. I am confident and unafraid. Adonai is my salvation. Who is my salvation? My salvation is Yeshua. Right? And then it says this, you will joyfully draw water from the springs of salvation. Verse 4, again, on that day. What is that day? It is an appointed day. Continuing, give thanks to Adonai, call on his name, make his deeds known among the peoples, declare how exalted is his name, sing to Adonai for he has triumphed. This is being known throughout the world, the earth. Sing and shout for joy, all you who live in Zion. For the Holy One of Israel is with you in his greatness. Sukkot is about a temporary dwelling, but it's also about drawing near and coming in to the presence of Yeshua. What is it you do with a harvest? You bring it in. Isn't that fascinating? If you're like me, you've had a garden, and about the only thing you can get to grow is maybe a couple beans, right? I don't grow things very well. I like the idea of farming. I like the idea of an agrarian sort of lifestyle. I kind of grew up fairly close to the land, but I've had no success in gardening various attempts over the years. And so I acknowledge that I'm forever beholden to Publix for my groceries. That's how that will be. But isn't it fascinating that you might plant a garden and they might plant a garden and we all plant gardens, right? But we get a different harvest. Some of you will do the right things, perhaps, or have the right ground, the right fertilizer, and you'll get an abundant harvest. But isn't it interesting that you never... Why would Adonai upset the balance of all creation? Why would Adonai do this, demonstrating such vulnerability, but rather just to show us the path to redemption? It's no small point that the curse came to Eve in the form of childbirth, that Yeshua came as an infant, born of a woman, to break that same curse. But it says this here, on that day you will say. What is that day? That day, I believe, is the appointed day that is also the remembrance day of the birth of Yeshua, for in the birth of Yeshua is truly our salvation and our deliverance. This is Yeshua, behold your King. This is Yeshua, behold your Mashiach, your Messiah. Hinei Adonai, Hinei HaMelachim, Hinei HaMashiach. Just because it's beyond my understanding, from my existence, beyond my ability to comprehend the physics or the morality or the mechanics behind the divine becoming a helpless infant. That's beyond me. I don't understand that. I don't get that. I don't have to. Because the overwhelming power of the redemption story. You know, in Western culture, we like these mythologies, right? We like the mythology of the Currier and Ives Christmas. We like the mythology of the Charlie Brown Christmas, which is this peace on earth, goodwill to men. But we're settling for marginalized testimonies of Adonai. That Adonai would bring about a salvation. That Adonai would bring about a closeness that resets the error with the wrong tree in the garden. And that puts to death and ends a curse. If you read the scriptures, you see the trajectory of the work of God among mankind. And if you see the scriptures looking backwards, you can see always aiming at the birth of Yeshua until we arrive at this juncture about 2,000 years ago. And the Emmanuel, God with us, the King of the Jews, came forth. We remember the birth, the joy, and the praise, the crown of the Jews. But also we remember Yeshua, the hope of the nations. Just like those Babylonian sign seekers, right? The ones who saw the sign in the heavens. The nations still look into the sign of the infant king who made himself helpless, that we might have no accusation of his sovereign right to become first king, but second, Mashiach, Messiah, the Savior of all the world. So on this Sukkot Shabbat, we remember Zechron HaYeladot Yeshua HaMashiach. We remember the child born, Yeshua HaMashiach. Shabbat Shalom. We will continue with our worship this morning. If somebody can find Robertson Casey.
It's on your boy.
If you would like prayer, you're welcome to join for prayer. William and Louise are in the corner if you'd like to come up. The bima, the front is also open if you'd like to come up here for prayer.
That's the spot. Where? It's like right here.
Uh,